Okay, this is a continuation of the Veterans History Project for Courtney Escher. The date is Thursday, March 5th, 2015. After hearing what I said yesterday, I realized there were a few things that I left out that I thought I would like to have included in this project. The first one is the group that set up the 839th in Camp Bliss, Texas. The original cadre, as I understood it, was a group of Army veterans from Panama. They were apparently transferred from Panama up to Camp Bliss, and they set up the 839th. Our officers, I think, came from various it's gone.
Should we start over?
Well, I just want to go from there.
Okay.
What am I trying to say?
That where the officers maybe came from.
Yeah, the officers came from the National Guard. Okay, are we recording?
We're recording.
Okay. So it was a brand new outfit. The next thing I wanted to mention was about the camp, the internment camp that we were in after the war, that we were guarding political prisoners that had been captured after the war ended. I was in charge, as I think I mentioned yesterday, the mess hall, the supply room, the PX, and anything else that happened to come along. But the thing I wanted to point out was that I could not have done any of that without the assistance of a man by the name of Willie Schlicht. And I think it was spelled Schlicht, S-C-H-L-I-C-H-T. And I believe he was what they call the undersecretary to a man by the name of Funk, F-U-N-K. First name was Walther, W-A-L-T-H-E-R, who had been in charge of the Treasury, I believe, for the Third Reich. And Willie was a very intelligent man. He was probably at that time in his late 40s, maybe even early 50s. And he spoke English very well, was a great organizer, was a mathematician, having worked for Funk. And because of him, he pretty much ran our supply room with my oversight. So he was a gifted individual, very intelligent, and very nice. I was questioned later on, just the other day, by a lady, because I mentioned in a conversation that we were having that we had, in our drive south from the Remagen Bridge, we ran across a concentration camp that had been liberated 1 or 2 days before our arrival. And I happened to mention this Willie Schlicht, and she wanted, because she was Jewish, or is Jewish, she wanted to know about the man. Was he a nice man, or was he a bad man, or what? And all I could say to her was that he was a nice guy, and seemed to have the interests of not only himself, but my interests, the interests of the men that were in the camp, their interests at heart. So I had nothing but praise for that particular individual. The concentration camp that I mentioned, I don't know where it was, I don't know anything about it. The only thing I can kind of remember is the bodies that were stacked up like, as I said at the time, like cordwood at the railroad track. Why that was, I don't know. We were only there a short while, probably a day, and we moved on. Our job in moving south all the way to Austria was as cleanup. We supported the infantry as anti-aircraft, but it was house-to-house fighting pretty much all the way south. The one incident that I do remember that I felt so bad about, we entered a house, and at the top of the stairs was a china cabinet full of dishes and all kinds of knickknacks. It was it was illuminated, or could be illuminated, and it was meant to be a sight that you would see as you first entered the house. And one of our men, that was part of our house-to-house canvas, you will, just walked up and pushed the whole thing down the stairway. Everything was smashed, ruined, for no reason at all, except he felt he had to destroy something, which I felt was just too bad. It did not look well for the American forces, and I always felt bad about that. The other thing, as I listened to what I was talking about yesterday, was what happened to me after the war was over. After I came out of service, I attended the University of Minnesota, and my intent was, at that time, I went into international business because while I wanted to get married, I also wanted to go back to Europe. And because I felt there was a great opportunity in Europe at that time in the rebuilding that was going to have to be done throughout France, Belgium, Holland, Germany. And I thought if I could get my university education out of the way, and then we could head back to Europe. That did not happen. What happened is that as I said, I was going to the University of Minnesota, and my wife at that time was taking her dietetic internship at the University of Minnesota, and we had gotten up early, gone to the university while she was training, and I was going to have a final that day, spring quarter at the university, and I read an ad, two-line ad in the morning paper, looking for a passenger representative for the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. I didn't know exactly what kind of a job that was, but I thought it was something I could handle, so I got on the streetcar, rode back downtown in Minneapolis, and I studied up there in front of his office. And so when he showed up about 8 o'clock, there I was, sitting in front of the office, studying away. He interviewed me and said he would call me that afternoon and let me know whether I was going to get a job or they were going to pass. I went to U, took my test, came home, and that afternoon the phone rang. It was Mr. Carlson, who was the general agent for the railroad there in Minneapolis, and told me I had the job as the passenger representative. What the job consisted of was making reservations for the car ferry that traveled from Wisconsin to Michigan.